a little update from the last time you saw me. My Walking Dead poster fell down, so I'm gonna have to sort that out. But yeah, a bit of a weird one to start this, I know. But yeah, eventually, actually, a quick update. I'm gonna have a bunch of touring car pictures here on my wall. So this will be the touring car, the YouTube section in my room. So instead of having the Walking Dead poster in my videos, you'll have a bunch of pictures here, which I think will spice up, make my background much more interesting than just my bedroom door. So yeah, but anyway, let's continue to the video. Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Elliot Webber and it is that time again. It is another episode of Webber's Race Roundup, the series on my channel where we talk about a previous weekend's racing. And yet, it is that time again. It's time to talk about round 4 of the 2023 British Touring Car Championship. I'm going to be honest, there's not going to be much I'm going to talk about in this one, purely because I'm going to talk about this now rather than later on in the video. This was the worst weekend so far of the season. The racing quality was, for BTCC standards, very bad. There wasn't much racing action, and especially for Thruxton, I expected much better, and I think a lot of people did expect much better, but there will be some other things that I will talk about that need addressing. But for now, let's just talk about the weekend, and let's start off with qualifying. So yes, qualifying kicked off exactly a week ago on the Saturday at Thruxton. It was... there was sort of a mixed, I think, feeling going into qualifying. We knew a lot of people were expecting the Napa cars to be back up there again, and we were expecting Josh Cook and the Hondas to be up there. They were, but not in the sense of what we expected. Josh Cook actually topped the first 2 practice sessions by over half a second ahead of the 2 drivers in second place in FP1 and FP2. So yeah, it was very highly expected that Josh Cook would be a shout for pole position, and he would be, but he wouldn't get pole position. In fact, yeah, Ash Sutton, of course he did. Ash Sutton took his second pole position of 2023 and what would be Napa's 4th pole position in a row. Again, I'm going to have to talk about Napa. The job that they're doing at the minute is just second to none. Undoubtedly, some of the best guys in BTCC at the minute are in Napa Racing, and they're setting up all 4 of those cars beautifully, and it's greatness. I think we have to agree it's greatness, not just from Ash Sutton, but also from the Napa team. You know, a lot of people do say yes, Ash Sutton is one of the greatest drivers of all time, but you've also got to commend it to the Napa boys. So yeah, qualifying was very uneventful. There was a red flag with Dan Camish causing a red flag by hitting one of the polystyrene boards on the chicane, which of course was there to stop people from track limits. Another thing we will talk about. So yeah, Ash Sutton on pole position. Second place would be Tom Ingram. It was another front row appearance for Tom Ingram in that Hyundai. Undoubtedly the best Hyundai driver at the minute. Of course, with Nick Halstead and Ronan Pearson being rookies, and of course Tom Chilton still is very inconsistent at the minute. Sometimes he's there, sometimes he isn't. But yeah, great to see Tom Ingram back up there. And well, you're probably wondering, well, where was Josh Cook? Josh Cook was P3 in the end. Honestly, a really good qualifying session. I know Josh Cook and Aidan Moffat and Will Pout are currently not happy with how the Honda is being set up. Josh Cook had said in an interview that they just cannot find that sweet spot that they had when they were BTC racing, and it is it is very surprising considering it had been revealed that the cars are the Team Dynamics cars, the engines are the Team Dynamics engines. They've got, of course, that Neil Brown Honda engine, though again not backed by Honda, but they've got the Honda chassis, they've got that Honda engine. They've got some guys from Team Dynamics that are there helping them. Matt Neal, of course, is aiding them as well. So it is a massive surprise to see 2 talented drivers in Josh Cook and Aidan Moffat not performing and not being where they should be. I'm not going to say not performing, because they are performing incredibly well. I think Snetterton proved that, and I do actually think last weekend proved that. But yeah, I just really hope, as a Honda fan, that One Motorsport can return to the top spot. They will get some trophies this weekend, so great for them, and we'll talk about that later. So in qualifying, it was Ash Sutton on pole, Tom Ingram in second place for Accelerate Hyundai, and Josh Cook rounding out the top 3. Now, my star of the session, I am going to give it to Mikey Doble. Yes, that's right. Mikey Doble is my Thruxton qualifying star of the session. He was very though he fell back in the races in qualifying, he was phenomenal. Qualifying P4 on the grid. His best qualifying, of course, of the season, and it being his first season, the best qualifying of his career. It was incredible to see Mikey Doble up there. Unfortunately, we couldn't see him very much in the race. He fell down I think, probably due to lack of experience, which is fair enough. But all 3 Power Max Vauxhalls were up there. We saw last year in 2022 that the Power Max Vauxhalls were battling the top 10 and the top 5. We saw that with Creasy and Ash Han last year. So to see that again with Doble, Watson and Taylor Smith, absolutely phenomenal. So Mikey Doble gets my start of the session. Now, let's move in to race number 1. So, race number 1 of the day, which kicked off last weekend at Thruxton on the Sunday. And as I mentioned, there was not much action, unfortunately. Dan Rowbottom, who qualified P14, had actually made his way up into the top 10. It was looking like it was going to be a really good day for Dan Rowbottom, but unfortunately, a mechanical failure meant that Dan Rowbottom would not be getting that top 10 finish that he hoped for after a poor qualifying session. So, yeah, major disappointment for him. That was roughly about the only action we got. We saw Bobby Thompson getting involved into the action as well. He would, of course, scrape the top 10. Tom Chilton made up some moves as well from 18th to about 12th, I think Tom Chilton was. So, again, good race for Tom. It seems like his race pace has improved over his qualifying pace over the winter. So, really good to see that from Tom Chilton. But yeah, I'm talking about the mid-pack, because at the front end of the field, there was not much change, other than, of course, Mikey Doble, as I mentioned, dropping back due to, I'm going to guess, inexperience, unless there was an issue with the car. But yeah, I'm just going to guess lack of experience running at the front, of course, so early into his career. So I'm not going to fault that from Mikey Doble. I still think he performed well in qualifying. But yeah, not much change at the front, very little overtaking, and it would, of course, be Ash Sutton taking his 5th win of 2023, now extending his championship lead over Tom Ingram, who would, of course, come through into second place. So, of course, it was Sutton, Ingram, and then Josh Cook. Josh Cook, who, whilst, yeah, was P3, he got a trophy finally that he got. It was great to see One Motorsport and Josh Cook finally get that podium that realistically they should have had in probably one of the first races at Donington Park. But as I mentioned, just that car is not there. It did seem like Josh Cook just could not pass Ingram. Of course, he was catching him. He was on the back of him for the majority of the race. But yeah, something about that Honda is lacking, that is unable to pass even the Hyundais. And we know the Hyundais are not the quickest car at the minute. So yeah, a big shame. But I mean, it's a podium for Josh Cook. So I think he will take here his first of what will be 2 podiums this weekend. But yeah, again, it's very hard to explain what is going on with that One Motorsport car, because I can only explain it in the same way that Josh Cook explained it, and that is they have not found that sweet spot in the car that they've had for the past 4 or 5 years now. They just cannot find it, and it's a massive shame. As I've mentioned, Josh Cook is someone who realistically, talent-wise, should be a championship contender. He's been on the outskirts of a championship battle now for about 4 years in a row, about 3-4 years in a row. He has never been a realistic championship contender, and I do think that is because he's never had a real car to do it. I do not think BTC/One Motorsport are a championship winning team. They're not I don't think they're a championship contending team. I think if Josh Cook was to be a championship contender in a Honda, it would be with Team Dynamics, I think. Yeah, but as I mentioned, of course, yes, they've got the Dynamics car. Yes, they've got the Dynamics engine, but it's not the Dynamics team. It's still One Motorsport. It's still BTC Racing, of course, as it was known last year and the previous years. But yeah, that was your top 3 in race 1. Ash Sutton, Tom Ingram, and Josh Cook. The same as it was in qualifying. Now, my driver of the race for race number 1... I can't really give it to many people because there wasn't much overtaking. I would say Tom Chilton could be a contender purely for the fact he had the most overtakes with 6, making up some ground, scoring some points. But yeah, I am going to give driver of the race, race number 1, to Ash Sutton. Simply put, he had the least amount of hybrid of anyone being the championship leader. Put it simply, he is the best driver on the grid. You cannot disagree with me on that. Ash Sutton, he's in the best car, he's the best driver, he's gonna dominate. I know some people don't like it, but I will talk about that later on in the video. In my conclusion, I will talk about some people that have moaned about Ash Sutton recently. But yeah, driver of the day, or driver of the race in race number 1 is Ash Sutton. Nothing else I can say. He was simply just the best driver in race 1. And again, in race number 2. So let's talk about that. So race number 2, and honestly, I'm probably just I might as well just copy and paste my race 1 clip. Yeah, it was the same top 3 again, and honestly, this race was worse than race number 2. I know I try to be as positive as possible. Everyone knows I'm a big defender of BTCC, and I'm not a big fan of when people just say not very nice things. I think that's the best way I could explain it. I'm not a big fan of driver criticism. I'm not a big fan of team criticism unless it's warranted. And I'm not a big fan of, the entire series being criticised unless it is worth criticising. Like I bring up with the track limit situation, with the new rules that have been in place. Of course, I forgot to mention that in qualifying there was, I believe, 27 track limit time removals in qualifying. Yeah, of course, we could talk about the track limits situation until the end of the day. In fact, I could probably continue on more with that, but I'm not going to. But yeah, race 2 was worse than race 1, and even then, race 1 didn't bring us much action other than a few little midfield battles. Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of changing something because something at the minute is bad. I've always, when a hybrid was introduced, I was one of the few people that was in favour of it. I still, right now, I do still think hybrid is better than ballast. I know a lot of people aren't going to like me for that, but I do think that being hybrid is more sustainable. But at the same time, I can fully understand why people do not like the hybrid. It's heavier, it's much more expensive, as explained on one of Team Hard's TikToks the other day. It's much more expensive. Teams are now having to pay, I think it's 35 grand, I think, for a hybrid installation. I think it's that. It's 5 figures. I do believe it's 35 grand roughly is how much hybrid is to have it installed into the car. It's heavy, it's expensive, and in a world where just living in your house costs money, costs too much money, something does need to be done for cost saving. And I will admit, as much as I love the hybrid and I'm in favour of it, something needs to be done, because it's just the fact that Ash Sutton again had no hybrid and he won this race. I know we're supposed to be talking about the racing, but yeah, as I mentioned, something needs to be done, because I will admit, there is something that's ruining the racing. I don't necessarily think it's the hybrid. I also do think it was also the tyres. Last weekend at Thruxton, of course, we saw with the soft, medium and hard compounds being introduced at Snetterton, that produced great racing in a track that usually produces very little at Snetterton. So I think that was just a shine of it. But I don't fully believe it's the hybrid that's causing the bad racing, but I do think that it's a part of it that it's not making it as good as it used to be. I don't want to go back to ballast, because at the same time it's like, you can either, here's what I think we could do. We could either bring back ballast but have it not as heavy as it was. So don't bring back the 75 kg for winning, because that would be far too heavy. as well as the hybrid. I don't think we should ditch hybrid. I do think it is a good way, because there have been some great overtakes due to hybrid. Hybrid's here to stay. People need to accept that. That's one thing a lot of people seem to forget. Hybrid is here to stay. It is not going anywhere. Alan Gow, Toka, they all believe in it. They all believe that eventually it will work in, hopefully, next year, where we can get it where it will be perfect. But even I said it. I said this will not be perfect straight away. This will take time. And that's pretty much it. Something does need to be done, though. Something needs to be done to improve the racing, because if we have another bad weekend at Alton Park, I do think we are going to start losing some fans. And as well, I'm recording this on the day that TCR UK are racing at Alton Park, and they just had an absolutely phenomenal race. So something needs to be done, otherwise touring cars, BTCC are going to start losing some fans. But anyway, now let's actually talk about race 2. As I mentioned, pretty uneventful. It was Ash Sutton who took his 6th victory of the season. As I mentioned, we're witnessing greatness. Ash Sutton now, at time of recording, and he took, I believe it was his 32nd career victory he took in race 2, which means he is only 4 wins off of James Thompson, Ivan Muller and Alan Menu on the all-time win record. He surpassed Matt Jackson at Snetterton. He is now in his own little bubble. He's not tied with anyone, but he is getting closer to surpassing Ivan Muller, James Thompson and Alan Menu. 3 of the greatest touring car drivers of all time, full stop. And Ash Sutton is closing in on them. And I mentioned this on the Saturday. I don't think Ash Sutton is human. I do not think that. I genuinely believe he was genetically created in a lab by Warren Scott in 2014. Of course, that's a joke. I don't actually think that. But Ash Sutton, when it comes to raw talent, Ash Sutton is possibly the greatest driver of all time in touring cars. I'm not, obviously, I don't see him as, I don't think he'd perform this well if he was in an F1 car or an Indy car or a Le Mans car. I'd very much like to see Ash Sutton in those types of machinery, but when it comes to touring car racing, Ash Sutton is the greatest talent I think we've ever witnessed. Now, I know that could be recency biased, and I don't want people saying, oh, you're just saying that because you weren't around. I was not around to witness the greats of Alain Menu, peak Matt Neal, peak Jason Play. I wasn't around. I was either very small or I wasn't born. But even so, to be so young and to be already chasing the records of the most championships, to be chasing the record, of course, he's still over 50 wins away from surpassing Jason Plato, but Ash Sutton is, 27, 28 at the time of recording? That is still incredibly young for a touring car driver. A lot of guys in touring cars, they race till they're about 40, mid-40s, early 50s if you Plato or Matt Neal. But we've seen people like Colin Turkington, like Matt Neal, like Jason Plato, like Gordon Shedden, who can go on into their 40s, still be able to win races and still be competitive, still winning championships. And let's be honest, right now it does look like Ash Sutton is going to become a 4-time champion by the end of the year. If Napa keep the Ford next year and it's just as competitive as it is this year, no doubt Ash Sutton will be a 5-time champion by I might as well make the prediction. Ash Sutton will be a 5-time champion by 2026. There you go. But yeah, I've been mumbling on a bit. This video, this race 2 bit's gone on for about 10 minutes already. But yeah, Ash Sutton is one of the greatest drivers of all time. 6 races in 12. Is it 6 and 12? Yeah, 6 and 12 races for Ash Sutton. So that's 50% of the season he's won already. Again, unbelievable. I won't be surprised if he gets 10 wins. I won't be surprised if he gets the win record for most wins in a single season. That's 12, held by Alan Menu, 1997, for those who don't know. So yeah, as I mentioned, Ash Sutton, undoubtedly one of the GOATs, championship pick, I think. So yeah, Tom Ingram P2, another trophy for him. Consistent as ever is Tom Ingram. He has been the second best driver, I think you could say. I think, yeah, Dan Camish has won 2 races. You know, Tom Ingram, of course, won his first race at Snetterton. But I think Tingram is at the minute the second best driver. And I think I would love to see Sutton and Ingram in the same car, because I honestly think that they're actually more evenly matched than people think. But yeah, anyway, Tom Ingram P2 and Josh Cook P3. Great stuff from him. Great to see Josh Cook back on the podium. A second podium for One Motorsport. A second podium for him. The potential is there. Hopefully Alton Park can be better for Josh Cook and for One Motorsport and for Aidan Moffat. Aidan Moffat and Josh Cook go fairly well round Alton Park the next round. So hopefully they'll be back again fighting for podiums and hopefully for wins. Driver of the race. I would give it to Ash Sutton because he was better in race 2 than he was in race 1. But it will be an Napa car, but it won't be Ash Sutton. My driver of the race is Dan Rowbottom from 24th to, I think, was it 10th? I believe it was 10th. So from 24th to 10th. Yeah, great stuff. We know that Napa car is quick. But even so, great job by Dan Rowbottom. He gets my driver of the race in race 2. Now let's move on to the final race, race number 3. So, race number 3, and then once again, it would not be a typical touring car race 3. As I mentioned at the start, this was the worst touring car weekend of the season so far, and I'm going to be honest, this was one of probably the worst I've seen. Not because of any farcical decisions, not because of any, wasn't a crash fest. Just the fact that nothing really happened. Of course, I will compliment the amazing work of Ash Sutton, Dan Camish, Dan Rowbottom, Sam Osborne, and the entire Napa Racing crew. I think, I don't think they should be hated for doing a job well done. It's like, it's like Formula One. They should not be pegged back for being the best team. They shouldn't be pegged back for being the best car. It's just the other teams have got to play catch up. So yeah, in fact, it would be the top 12 reverse. So a bit of work to do for Ash Sutton, but that I think was the exciting part. What could Ash Sutton do from 12th on the grid? Could he do that 3 out of 3 that looks very likely? I think that will happen at some point this year. That 3 out of 3 seems very doable for the pace of that Ford and for the immaculate talent that is Ash Sutton. In fact, no. Past the top 12 reverse, Ash Sutton only made up 1 position and he would finish 11th or 12th. No, yeah, didn't make up any positions. He only ended up 12th. So it was either Sutton just went for points, or he thought, oh, do you know what? I'll let someone else have a win for once. So Ash, if you're watching this, thanks for letting someone else win. So yeah, well, Ash Sutton wouldn't win. It would be a Napa car that would take the win, and that is the Napa Ford Focus of Dan Rowbottom. He would, I would say finally, he would finally take his first win of the season, his second career win. He's done it in a Honda, now he's done it in a Ford. Honestly, he just seemed way too quick for Adam Morgan, who would start on reverse grid pole. Yeah, the BMWs again had a pretty poor weekend. I don't know what it is, but the BMWs this year have just not been up to standard. We expected them to be the championship contenders. As I mentioned at the very start of the season, Jake Hill was my personal pick to win the championship, to become the champion. But no, Jake Hill hasn't won a race this year. Stephen Jelly, stuck in the mid-pack. Adam Morgan, 2 podiums now on his manufacturer list. For him, Colin Turkington, 1 win for him. But yeah, at the minute, there is no stopping the Napa Fords. There is no stopping Ash Sutton. There is no stopping Napa Racing. Because, yeah, as I mentioned, Dan Rowbottom would take his first win of 2023, something that he seemed very happy with. Of course, Dan Rowbottom, if Ash Sutton isn't as quick at Alton Park, could we very well see Dan Rowbottom or Dan Camish play catch up? Could they catch up to Ash Sutton? Could we actually have a title fight on our hands? I really hope so. Adam Morgan, as I mentioned, he would take his second podium in 2023. He's done it in the wet, now he's done it in the dry. His second podium in manufacturer colours at Team BMW. And Aidan Moffat, he would take his first trophy of 2023, his first podium in 2023 as well. So it was 3 podiums out of 3 third places out of 3 for One Motorsport. That is something I think they should be proud of. As I keep saying, that car is not there. It's not where it should be. But that does give some hope for any One Motorsport fans out there, myself included. Hopefully we can see One Motorsport back up there. And hopefully we can see BMW back up there. Because honestly, BMW have been really lacking as of late. Because recently it's looked like that BMW are not only behind Ford, they also look like they're behind Hyundai now. It looks like the top 2 teams at the minute are, of course, Napa Racing and Accelerate Motorsport. Now, I know Accelerate don't have as good of a lineup as Team BMW, but it does look like that Hyundai is 10 times, well, not 10 times quicker, but quicker than the BMW. Yeah, hopefully BMW can come back at Alton Park. Alton Park is actually a very good track for that 3 Series, so hopefully we can see Colin Thruxton back up there. He goes well around Alton Park. So does Adam Morgan. I do think Alton is actually Adam's local track. So hopefully Adam Morgan can get his first win. Hopefully Jake Hill is as well. I think Jake Hill needs to have a talking to, I think. Because right now, it doesn't look like Jake Hill, who, I'm going to be honest, Jake Hill so far has been the best BMW driver. I do think qualifying, race pace, getting his elbows out, he does look like the best of the 4 BMW drivers, but he hasn't got the results. He hasn't got the results to complement his talents. Jake Hill's winless in 2023 so far, and that's something that, honestly, as someone who, as I've mentioned, Jake was my personal pick for the championship this year, and the only way you're going to win championships is if you win races, because I don't think we've ever had a winless champion in BTCC. We have in TCR Europe, but we haven't in BTCC, I don't think. Jake needs to win races. He needs to start trying to catch up to those Fords. I'm sure he is trying. But yeah, unfortunately, Jake, smooth TikToks aren't gonna win your races. So yeah, top 3, as I think I've mentioned, it was Dan Rowbottom, Adam Morgan, and Aidan Moffat. Driver of the race, race 3. Again, I'm gonna give it to Dan Rowbottom, because from 5th place on the grid, he made his way up to P1. He had unbelievable pace. When he made it up into 2nd place, he caught Adam Morgan, who was 2 seconds ahead. He caught him in about 2 laps. So he's caught up about a second a lap. That Ford was rapid, much more rapid than the BMW. Conclusion now. As I mentioned, Thruxton was not a good weekend, and I honestly think it was a very bad look for touring car racing, or a very bad look for BTCC anyway. But I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about throughout this whole video. People who are complaining about Ash Sutton dominating need to look back at the Super Touring era. Now, again, as I mentioned, I was not alive. I was not in the world when the Super Touring era was around. But, as I mentioned earlier, the current record for most wins in a single season is 12. Alain Menu currently holds that record. Alain Menu, when he won his championship in 1997, his first championship in 1997, he was regarded as the best touring car driver in the world. And that is why a lot of people do regard him as one of the greatest touring car drivers of all time. And I will agree with that. Alain Menu is a phenomenal racing driver, undoubtedly one of the greats. But if people are complaining about Ash Sutton dominating, were you complaining when Alain Menu was doing the same thing? Because to me, as I mentioned, I don't agree with bashing a driver and, oh, I don't like you because you win so much. It's like, now, right, of course, when I hold my hands up here, I do not like to see Ash Sutton dominating. I like to see him winning. I like to see him winning the championship. I would not call myself an Ash Sutton fan, but, as I mentioned, I rate him very highly. I put him in one of the top 5 greats of all time in touring car racing. I will forever say that. I will say that for the rest of the year if I have to. But yeah, I don't agree. You know, Ash Sutton is a polarizing character. I think we can say that. I think, you know, some people love him, some people hate him. For me, I'm very in the middle. Of course, he's great. That's why he's dominating. He's got a great car. That's why he's dominating. But yeah, for some people I've seen a few people on Twitter, mainly on Twitter and on Facebook, that some people believe that Toka have set up Ash Sutton's car in a way that makes the car fast. To me, that just sounds like delusion. I fully understand people don't like dominance, you know, that's why Sebastian Vettel got hate, that's why Lewis Hamilton got hate, that's why Max Verstappen is getting hate now, because of course he's running away with his championship in Formula 1. You know, people don't like dominance, they don't like seeing one person being successful. I fully understand that. I am not a huge fan of Ash Sutton dominating. I'd much rather see him win a championship in the 3rd and final race on the last lap of the season. You know, something we saw last year in touring cars when Tom Ingram had to pass Jake Hill to win the championship on the last lap. But at the same time, you put a great driver in a great car, they are going to run away with it. So, yeah. My overall driver of the weekend, I haven't done that yet, but well, my overall driver of the day for the 3 races, it's going to be Ash Sutton. It's going to be Ash Sutton. He is just that good at the minute. This is undoubtedly, this is prime Ash Sutton we're witnessing. And someone else said it on Twitter. They said, we are witnessing greatness, so let's just sit back and witness it. Yeah, again, I'm going to keep saying it. Ash Sutton will go down as one of the greatest drivers to ever live when it comes to touring car racing. Not just BTCC, touring cars as a whole. I genuinely believe that Ash Sutton is that good. So yeah, that is it pretty much for episode 4 of Webber's Race Roundup of the BTCC season. Thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, if you are new around here, please be sure to like this video, share with your mates as well, because it does help my channel grow. And as always, please click that red subscribe button, because we are firmly on the road to 200 subscribers. We currently sit on 164 at time of recording, I believe. So please get subscribing, because we would very much like 200 subscribers at least, or at the earliest, by the summer break. So roughly in about 2 weeks, hopefully over 40 subscribers in 2 weeks. Wow. That's going to be difficult. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, also comment down below your predictions for Oulton Park. Will Ash Sutton make it 2 out of 2? Will Ash Sutton be able to do the triple? Will he become the 3rd driver in history to make it 3 wins out of 3 at Oulton Park? Let me know your predictions below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.